across campus, online and on 12:51 AM. This is your student radio station.
Hi there, welcome to this Black History Month special with Raw News, your student radio station on campus for the University of Warwick. If you're new to Warwick, you're new to Raw, you can get involved by finding us on social media, and we'd really love to see you there and for you to get involved with the brilliant radio station that we have on campus. Today we're discussing Black History Month, and I've got an array of guests to talk to me about the month, why it's important, what's happening this month, and how this blended and online university approach is working. So 3 panelists, we're going to introduce them, bring them on screen and really let them introduce themselves in their own words. Here we are. Hello, who are you? What's your role? And what does Black History Month mean to you?
Hi, so my name is Amarachukwu, Amara for short. I'm Warwick SU's Women's Officer, but I'm also Exec on Warwick Antiracism Society, and I'm the BAME Officer on Warwick Anti-Sexism Society. And so for me personally, Black History Month is the appreciation and celebration of Black people. It's the highlighting of what should already be in the forefront of all of our minds, that Black people have for history been at the forefront of a lot of organizing and a lot of resistant work and struggle work as well. So for me, Black History Month is just putting everything more that we should already know, but heighten it in that 1 month.
It's a very important month to you, and I'm sure it is to our next guest, Rachel, as well. Hi, Rachel. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what Black History Month means to you?
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel. I am the Co-Ethnic Minorities Officer in the SU, and I'm also part of the organising group, so Warwick Exec. And I guess I'm also a third-year history student, so Black History Month to me is really just an opportunity for me to talk about how much history I want to, because I'm a history geek. But I think just in general, Black History Month is just an opportunity for people to learn about Black history and for people to kind of fill in the gaps, because I do think the British education system isn't particularly the best at informing people of Black history and just the legacy of the work that Black people are doing worldwide. So yeah, that's what Black History Month means to me.
And we'll get on to the education and the curriculum really in a moment, but we've got one more person to meet. Hello, welcome to the stream. Who are you and what does Black History Month mean to you?
Hi, I'm Tomi. I'm a PPE student, and I'm also on the Warwick Exec. I think, like Black History Month for me is just a time to celebrate Black people, Blackness, and I guess sort of resist like the sidelining, marginalization of our narratives, experiences, histories. That's mainly it, really. Yeah.
Welcome. It's great to have you. Rachel, I want to start with a point you mentioned there about the curriculum, the education system, and this really stretches all the way from schools to universities, I suppose, is that really white history is what they call in schools history, and Black history is seen as something that's separate. It's not seen as one. This is a big problem.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Like, just thinking back to when I was in secondary school, I think the main thing that we learned about Black history was slavery. And then it was when I decided to do GCSE. Even GCSE didn't really cover it that much. It was more so just like American history. But it was as I kind of went up in education that I was learning more about Black history, which I don't think is particularly good, because if I wasn't so passionate about history, I would still want to know the basics. I'll still want to know, like the Bristol. I think just in general, the British education system hasn't been particularly good at that.
So we're hearing there about the education system, particularly in secondary school. But what about university, Rachel? Is that as diverse in its teachings as it should be?
I would say not really. I think in first year, this is just like from my experiences, in first year, there was a module on the history of Africa from 1800 up until now, which is like amazing to hear. But I think just a history of Africa in itself is very broad, and for the timeline is very broad. It's like there's not really a specific focus on a specific Black history. I do think the history department are trying. I've had many talks with them about how to improve the range of history that is taught. I do think there could be like a lot more done. And Black history isn't only about teaching Black history, if that makes sense. It's also about ensuring that there is representation in all departments. So that's also something to think about. during Black History Month as well.
And Amara, I'd like to come to you as someone who's involved with anti-racism and anti-sexism on campus, two big organising forces when it comes to Warwick. Perhaps you could tell somebody maybe is new to the university or new to sort of activism at university, what does Black activism look like at Warwick?
So at Warwick, Black activism takes many shapes and many forms, but it's always one where we are always standing in solidarity with other groups or we're fighting for ourselves. So I think a lot of things that comes to mind is, and a lot of people who are here are actually involved with this, is rent striking, where we have a lot of Black students who are the forefront of rent strikes. We then also have the occupation of the SU, which had occurred last year in November, actually last year around this time of month. And we had a lot of Black students who stood in solidarity with Palestinian students and were calling for the SU to change its colonial and racist ways. And then we have Black students standing in support of one another when it comes to the releasing of the Black students' demands, where we are actually taking a bunch of demands to the university and saying this is how you need to improve the university in order for it to be a helpful and safe space for your Black students. And then you have the addition of Black students at the background of the societies of Warwick Antiracism and Warwick Antisexism and other liberation societies, where they table our beliefs about the online teaching and how it's the safest option for students at Warwick.
And online teaching is something we'll get to in a little while, but really you gave us a flavour of the sort of things that people may have seen over the past years, may expect to see over the coming years. Tomi, I wonder maybe if you have a slightly different or just a more personal view for you about what Black activism looks like on campus.
I mean, yeah, I think when Amara said Black students stand in solidarity with other groups, but also fight for ourselves, I think that's probably the best way to capture it. And that's been my own experiences over the last year that I've been here, just understanding like the intersectionality between different forms of oppression that different groups face. And there's Black students which are at the forefront of fighting that in almost every case. So yeah, I would also say that in a lot of cases, it's not a lot of Black students doing all this work. It can be quite focused on people who are quite heavily involved in activism, but nonetheless, largely Black activists are sort of leading the way at Warwick, in my opinion.
And there was a campaign a month or two ago, renamed Radcliffe, about the background of this building on campus and SU officers calling for the building to be renamed. Amara, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about this and why you were in support of it.
That's fine. I think Rachel, as Ethnic Minorities Officer, as well as Naz, co-Ethnic Minorities Officer, they brought this to our attention. But the Rename Radcliffe campaign is one which has existed in many different demands over the few years. And so it first came to light in the Work Occupy demands to the university, then was echoed in the Black students' demands to the university, and then is a standalone campaign which is supported and launched by the SU. And so as a very summarized summary of the campaign, it's just calling to rename a building that honors and celebrates a man who was responsible for the deaths and like murder of so many people. And we're saying to our university, you shouldn't put the names of people who have committed very violent actions and actually have us walk through those buildings. So that's why I'm in support of it, because I don't believe in the glorifying and the praising of violent individuals. If you've committed atrocities, then you shouldn't be remembered.
And Rachel, why was this something that for you that you decided to bring to the attention of other student union officers?
Yeah, I think it's, as Amara said, it's really just quite sickening when I think of it. Like, there's a building on campus that is there for the glorification of a colonizer, basically. And I think it's just wild to think about. But when we really put it in perspective, especially with like Warwick's kind of advancements in trying to get more Black people and people of colour onto the campus, it does seem kind of ironic that the decision isn't being made to alter and to facilitate those students and to ensure that that campus is safe for them. And I do think just the existence of the Radcliffe building, and Radcliffe being the person who drew the partition lines for India, which, as Amara said, caused so many deaths, I think it is really sticking in. And rename Radcliffe was essentially born to acknowledge and to bring to light Warwick's colonial history, or the history of upholding colonialism at Warwick.
And Tomi, what would you say to somebody that maybe is just starting out at university or wants to get more involved with activism and Black activism on campus? How could they do that? Is it mainly organised through societies?
I would say, the most sensible thing to do if you're a Black student and you want to get involved in activism is probably join Warsaw, come to our events, get to know people. It's not necessarily a formal thing like Black activism or whatever at Warwick. It's just networks of people who like doing activism and want to stand up for themselves and other people. So I think just get invested and involved in the places where you see people talking about this or doing events on it, speaking about it, and just find ways to engage with those people and see what can be done from there. And I mean, if you're outside of campus, then you can also find other networks in Coventry to do that with.
Amara, as someone who's involved with anti-racism and anti-sexism on campus, there were these demands that were sent to Warwick about how the year ahead is going to work, particularly in the current circumstances of coronavirus and the potential of a second lockdown or a rise in cases across the country. There's a lot of concern about how teaching takes place. Perhaps you could now tell us, Amara, what this letter was about and why these are measures that you support.
Sure. So the letter was written by our liberating societies, which is Warwick Antiracism Society, Warwick Anti-Sexism Society, and Warwick Pride. And the three societies came together to table and also we included a Black society, so Warwick Ghanaian society as well. And so the four of us actually came together and said, we do not support the university's decision of blended learning. Everything needs to be moved online for the safety of all of our students. However, but more importantly, we have to highlight that COVID, and we've seen it in the news, affects Black and brown and disabled and trans and gay community a lot more than any other body of individuals in the country. And so it is the safest option to move everything online for the safety of the general public, but also more so for those who are more at risk, mainly either because there are lack of facilities, we do not get the same treatment in hospitals and in care as other people. And so that is just the safest option. And the reason why I support it is because you have to think to yourself, if we have blended learning, which member of staff or which student would you like to sacrifice first for my need for student experience? Because essentially that's what we're doing. We're saying we can have blended learning and people can pick and choose where they whether or not to come to campus, but then those individuals' actions do not occur in isolation. They will still have to socialize with their housemates who may choose to stay indoors, or they will still be putting at risk the members of staff who have to come in and who have no choice because these students have chosen to come on campus. And so the safest option for everyone is move everything online, and those who need to be on campus for labs can come on campus, and everything is safe for them to do so.
There may be some that say at the time that was a bit of an overreaction. It was too extreme. And here we are on campus in the third week, and there's this blended approach of online and in-person learning. Amara, is it working the way it is at the moment?
It's not perfect. We knew it wouldn't be perfect. My frustrations were if the university had actually taken the time to listen to UCU, many students, and the SU, and now called for everything to be moved online, we would be able to now tackle the problems with online learnings that come with it. Instead, the insistence of avoiding us means that we will eventually become completely online as cases continue to rise, as we've seen on campus and everywhere in the entire country. And we won't be prepared for it. If they had actually said, this is the decision we're going to take, and now we're going to perfect it, so there is no problems online, then things would be a lot better. So it's not perfect, but one thing I have to note is it's not perfect, but it's keeping people safe and alive. And that should be the most important thing.
And Tomi, I want to talk to you about 8 demands. We're not going to go through all 8, but 8 demands that were released towards the end of July to the University of Warwick. And the first one is the most striking, I think. We demand the university to adopt a definition of racism. So many people will be surprised that the university doesn't have a definition of racism. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly ironic that Warwick, in their responses to us, claim that they want to be an even more anti-racist university, and kept banging on about how they've got all these new complaints processes that are made for Black students, and they're fighting to decolonize XY, but they can't produce a basic definition on racism. And then when we proposed a definition of racism for them, which actually took a long time to draft, and it had a lot of input from academics and other activists around, and they didn't engage with that at all. So I mean, really, what their lack of engagement with that, honestly, it's a mask-off moment where it really shows that the uni is not really serious about being anti-racist or decolonizing. It just wants to do it essentially for the aesthetics and the financial benefits that branding itself as such can actually bring about, because it doesn't really want to engage with what Black students actually think racism is and how they think it affects them, because ultimately it's going to implicate Warwick as an institution if they actually have a proper definition of racism in far more instances of racism or legacies of colonialism than they'd otherwise like to admit if they just stay ambiguous about the definition of racism. So yeah, I think it's really just a mask-off moment.
It's a very big moment, and I think it's a very poignant moment to leave our conversation on today. Finally then, but before I let you go, if people have listened to what you've said today and maybe they want to get involved with some of the activism that takes place or with the Anti-Racism Society, you can join the society on the SU website, follow you on social media, and that's where you'll find most of the up-to-date information. Well, thank you, Amara, Rachel, Tomi, for joining me and joining Raw News today to talk about Black History Month. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
There we are, very interesting discussion, and you can find all the information on the Anti-Racism Society Facebook and Twitter and Instagram pages. And if you'd like to get involved with Raw and with Raw News, join us as a society through the SU website. Find us on Facebook, join the groups, and we look forward to seeing you very soon.
Across campus, online, and on 12:51 AM. This is your student radio station.